district Latur in Maharashtra state. It's organized an international e-conference, a daily webinar series. For today's session, on the dais is Honorable Dr. Nina Savelle-Rocklin ma'am, who is today's keynote speaker. So first of all, I heartily welcome to you, madam. I welcome the chief organizer of the series of e-conference, Honorable Dr. M.M. Bedkar sir. Also welcome all those dear participants who joined the series every day and today also. The topic for today's presentation is Unlock 5 Secrets to Food Freedom. Now this topic is going to present, as I have mentioned, today's keynote speaker, Dr. Nina Savelle-Rocklin ma'am, who is from California at United States. So with this brief introduction, now I request you, madam, please start your presentation on the topic Unlock 5 Secrets to Food Freedom. But kind request, give some details from your side and start your presentation. You are most welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here. So I was a brand new therapist, and I was about to start my very first group for women with binge eating disorder. I opened the door, and one of the women, she had bright red hair. She was in her 50s. At the time, she was a little scary to me. She looked me up and down and said, "You're the therapist?" And I tried to figure out the problem. Was she expecting someone older with more experience? Was it totally obvious that this was my very first group? And then she said, "So, what does a skinny thing like you know about binge eating?" What she didn't know was I once considered myself the poster child for eating disorders. What I said was, this skinny thing once scarfed down an entire box of gingerbread cookies in about 15 minutes flat. And I hate gingerbread, but I couldn't stop eating those cookies. So I told the group that when I was 5 years old, I came to believe that if I were thinner, I would somehow be better. And that was the beginning of my obsession with food and with my weight. And when I look at my teenage journals, every page is filled with numbers. Calories I ate, calories I burned, the weight I was, the weight I was going to be one day. I was always on some crazy restrictive diet, and eventually my willpower would fail, and I'd eat everything in the kitchen. And sometimes I would purge, which is why I was the poster child for eating disorders. I had all of them. So in college, I finally went to therapy, but I went for anxiety. And I talked about every part of my life with my therapist, except one. I never told her what was going on with food. I was too ashamed of what I was doing. I was too mortified. So nobody knew the truth. Nobody. But by the time I left therapy, all my eating disorder behaviors were gone for good. And remember, not once, not a single time had I ever told my therapist what was really going on with food. So how is this possible? Well, I learned that food wasn't actually the problem. It was actually the solution to the problem. The real problem, as I discovered, was how critical and harsh I was to myself. So I was turning to food to escape my own mean voice. Now, I stopped being the poster child for eating disorders because I fundamentally changed my relationship with myself and the world. And I did it by implementing the strategies that I am going to share with you today. And by the way, why at age 5 did I suddenly randomly think that I should be thinner when I was a perfectly normal weight child? Well, my parents are college professors, very academic, more on the quiet side. And they were always telling me, "Oh, you're too loud, you're too sensitive, you're too dramatic, you're too emotional, calm down." So the message was, "Oh, you're too much to handle." So my 5-year-old mind took that literally. And on some level, I thought there was too much of me. And I would be more lovable if there was somehow less of me, if I were thinner. So my experience in therapy and as a 5-year-old, this really points to the importance of psychology when it comes to overcoming food issues. And I became a therapist, a psychoanalyst, because I wanted to help other people stop the obsession and the madness over food, weight, and body image. And so today I'm going to share 5 secrets to creating food freedom without dieting, counting calories, carbs, or macros, or spending hours in the gym. So the first secret is actually to stop dieting. Most people, they feel very hopeful and optimistic when they go on a diet. Maybe they even lose weight. Diets work at first, right? But eventually they go off the diet, they feel guilty, they end up eating all the foods they've been depriving themselves of, plus more, which leaves them feeling shame and guilt. So they go on another diet, hoping this time will be different, but it's not. And before they know it, they are just caught up in a diet binge cycle. Now, if this is familiar, it doesn't mean you're weak or a failure. You're just stuck. And that has nothing to do with willpower or being addicted to food. The diet industry is a $60 billion industry, and business is booming. According to the CDC, the Center for Disease Control in the United States, nearly half of all Americans are on a diet. It's about 162 million dieters. The UK has 13 million dieters. Australia has 3 million. I don't know the exact statistics on India, but I did read that 39% of the population of India is dieting. I don't know if that's true, but I just read that last night. And one British study found that by the time the average woman is 45, she will have tried 61 diets. So people all over the world are losing weight and gaining it back. So why is that? Well, for one thing, many of them have a diagnosable and treatable condition, binge eating disorder, and they don't even know it. And as a psychoanalyst specializing in eating disorders, specifically binge eating, I know there is a reason our eating is out of control, and that reason isn't about control, it isn't about willpower, it isn't even about food. And that is why diets don't work. They don't help you stop binging or emotional eating. They only focus on what you are eating and not why. And in fact, diets actually, many studies show that diets actually cause weight gain in the long run. So there are many reasons we turn to food, and they are often rooted in our unconscious minds. And food seems like it has okay. I don't know. I didn't mute myself, so I don't know when you stopped being able to hear me. Okay. I'll just say that I was just saying it's not what we are eating that is the problem. It is what's eating at us. And I was going to tell you about my patient named Jenna, that is not her real name. I have to say that. So one night, Jenna was relaxing and watching TV when suddenly Ben and Jerry's started calling her name. I don't know if you have Ben and Jerry's in India, but it is a very popular ice cream. So that's how she put it, calling my name. And she said nothing was wrong. She wasn't upset. She wasn't worried about anything. She said she was addicted to Chunky Monkey, which is a flavor of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. So I asked what she was watching before ice cream started calling her name. And it was a rerun of a show called Charmed, which is her favorite show. And since she was doing something she enjoyed, there was no reason, or so she thought, that she'd want to down a pint of ice cream. So I wondered what was going on in the episode. Well, it was when a demon comes down, breaks the bond between the sisters. The show's about sisters. And they started fighting. It got very nasty. And I said, oh, sisters fighting, huh? And Jenna said, oh my gosh, I see what happens. So what happened? Jenna had a terrible relationship with her sister. Watching the show, watching the TV episode about sisters fighting, activated intense feelings about their relationship. But before she was consciously aware that she was being triggered, she went to ice cream for comfort and distraction. Ice cream was not the problem. Ice cream was the solution to the problem, which was her inability to cope with her thoughts and feelings about her sister. So I helped Jenna find new ways of identifying her feelings and soothing herself. And guess what? Ice cream stopped calling her name. So Jenna is living proof that change is possible. And her story also shows how our deepest emotions can be hidden from us, yet they're the reason we're eating. So like Jenna, a lot of us think we're triggered by food, ice cream, chocolate, whatever. I'm here to tell you, no, we are not triggered by food. We are triggered by a situation we can't see or possibly don't want to look at. And that leads me to secret number 2, which is cracking the code of emotional eating. So in the years that I've been helping people, I started noticing some patterns. No matter what their age, gender, ethnicity, when it came to cravings, people were drawn to 3 basic categories of food. Smooth and creamy like ice cream or yogurt or pudding, things like that. Filling, bread, pasta, pizza, cake, muffins, things like that. Or crunchy foods, chips and crackers. So what does it mean? Well, when we crave ice cream or something creamy, it really isn't ice cream we want. It is comfort. So the key to change is finding new ways of comforting ourselves that don't involve food. And the second category is filling. Food takes up space. Those kinds of food fill us up. And that is related to symbolically filling an emotional void. So the key is to look at the holes in your life, the empty spaces, and find new ways to fill them. And last is crunchy textures. So anything that makes us bite down hard is associated with forms of anger, like frustration, annoyance, irritation, rage. I have some I'm running a little behind, so I have some research about the psychophysiology of that, but I'm gonna skip over it. But basically, and sweetness, chocolate, anything sweet, maybe you need more sweetness in your life, not the kind of sweetness that comes from sugar, but the kind that comes from the sweetness of connection and fulfillment, love. Now, this is what I call my food mood formula secret. And now you know the secret. And keep in mind that enjoying some chips with your sandwich is not the same as eating an entire family-sized bag of chips and hating yourself with every bite. The food mood formula just applies to situations where we feel a pull towards food to change the way we emotionally feel. So next time you get a craving, consider whether it is creamy, crunchy, or filling, and look at the corresponding needs, emotions, wishes, conflicts. When we deal with those, stop eating as a way of coping. So what I just shared is a tool that helps you discover your hidden why. Instead of focusing on what you're eating, want to look at why. And once you have clarity, you can adjust those underlying reasons. And those underlying reasons are everything, because when we have a weed in our garden, we don't just pull up the weed. We know it's going to grow back because we have to get to the root. So like our unconscious minds, there are aspects of our thoughts and feelings, needs, wants, conflicts that are out of our awareness. We're in the dark, they're underground, but when we dig them out, they are gone forever. So the next secret number 3, is to soothe without food. And as you can see, what you're eating isn't the problem. Let's talk about the real problem, which is we live in a society that says it is not okay to have emotions. We are considered weak if we have them and strong if we push them away. So we get these messages of, scared, oh, fight, don't give in to fear, be strong. Angry, oh, you're an angry person. You need anger management classes. Sad, oh, you're depressed. You have to take a pill, take an antidepressant. Anxious, there's a pill for that too. So the message is there is something wrong with feelings. And of course, many of us do benefit from medication, but I am talking about injunctions against our basic human emotions that connect us to ourselves and to each other. So with all these prohibitions, it is no wonder that so many of us don't know how to comfort ourselves, be with ourselves, express ourselves, or respond to ourselves. No wonder so many of us turn to food as a way of coping. So remember, it is important to express our emotions, to soothe ourselves, to express what we feel, because emotions are simply reactions to situations. They are not character flaws. If you are angry about something, that doesn't make you an angry person. It makes you a person who's angry for a reason. So first, start putting words to your emotions. Use my food mood formula to figure out what's going on. And remember, you cannot ignore feelings. You cannot drop them. You cannot positive think them away. You cannot stuff them down. The only way to get rid of feelings is to actually feel them, because what we feel, we will heal. And that is how we manage all feelings: stress, resentment, sadness, anger, anxiety, any other emotional response to a situation that we have as human beings. Very important to normalize that. The 4th secret is to activate self-love. So think about a friend of yours. Take a moment, think about a friend of yours, someone you really care about, someone, or maybe someone you love. Now imagine that person is upset. Would you say, oh, you're upset? Okay, I know what to do. I know just what to do. The ice cream's in the freezer. The chips are in the pantry. Let's order pizza. Of course not. You would never give your friend food as a result of them being upset. You'd be helpful, interested, supportive. Maybe you'd eat with them as you're talking with them, but food would not be the answer. And often we help others, sometimes to a fault. Anna Freud, who is Sigmund Freud's daughter, she talked about a defense mechanism called altruistic surrender, in which people sacrifice or denounce their own needs, but help others. And they are selfless to a fault. And this is very common, I find, with people who struggle with food. They take care of other people, but food takes care of them. So the goal is to treat ourselves with the same consideration that we show to others. But first, we have to identify our inner critic, right? Let me tell you about Becca, who started every day, again, not her real name. She started every day looking in the bathroom mirror and making a face at herself. And she said to her reflection, "You're disgusting. You're disgusting." And I asked her to repeat that in I language, as in, I'm disgusting. And she couldn't. She said it sounded too harsh. And that's exactly the point. Because using the pronoun you when we're talking to ourselves means our inner critic is in charge of our thoughts. So if you ever say anything to yourself, like, you're not good enough, you're going to fail, they don't like you, that is your inner critic talking. It makes us feel bad. And then we may eat or do other things for comfort. And often that inner critic is the internalized voice of someone in our lives, someone from our past, someone who criticized us or was too hard on us. And we identified with that person and made their voice our own. Internalization. Or sometimes it's a result of neglect. When children don't get enough structure, don't have enough boundaries in their lives, they don't feel safe. And so they create harsh inner boundaries that manifest often as an inner slave driver. So instead, got to take our own sides. Ask ourselves, what's going on with me? What do I need right now? What am I feeling? And tell yourself, I'm capable. I'm capable. I've got this. I'm perfectly imperfect. I like me. So changing the way we talk to ourselves is extremely powerful. And Becca started being kind to herself with the first person pronoun. And guess what? She stopped feeling as if food had power over her. She stopped binging. She got her life back because she was no longer being mean to herself. And then she turned to food to get away from her own mean, critical, harsh voice. And when she looked in the mirror, she no longer hated her reflection. She had learned to accept herself from the inside out and treat herself with compassion and kindness. And by the way, being kind to ourselves, that means not just the words we say, but the way we say them. So another example, Sam. He came in one day, he said, he tried talking to himself and he said, it didn't work, not at all. It didn't help. It didn't change anything. So I asked Sam to repeat exactly what he had said in the same way that he had said it. And he said, and I'm going to demonstrate, this is what he said, and this is how he said it. He said, this is hard, but I'm going to get through it. I'll be okay. Well, of course, he didn't feel better. He sounded like he was at a funeral or something. I mean, who would feel better with that tone? The same words sound completely different if you use a different tone. You can say, this is hard, but I'm going to get through it. I'll be okay. Same words, completely different tone. And a soothing tone can feel like a verbal hug, is what I like to say. And after practicing this way of responding to himself, not just the words, but the tone of voice, Sam noticed a huge shift in how he felt. And he had never been able to keep Oreos in the house without eating all of them. And one day he realized he had forgotten that he had Oreos in his pantry and they had been there for weeks. He couldn't believe it. He'd been dieting all his life, changing the way he responded to himself, soothing with words, not food, made all the difference. When Sam started being nicer to himself, food stopped being such a problem. He stopped binging and he felt as if he were living more and having more fun. So the fifth secret is to disrupt guilt and shame. Society often tells us that eating is tied to our morality. We're good if we eat salad. We're bad if we eat pasta. And feeling guilty or ashamed for what you're eating or how much you weigh can be a distraction from a deeper sense of guilt or shame about yourself or other aspects of your life. Let me just quickly distinguish between guilt and shame. Guilt is about something that you did or didn't do. It references behavior or action. So we feel guilty when we've done something wrong or when we choose not to take action. So guilt sounds like, oh, I did something wrong. I did something really bad and wrong. Shame is, I feel guilty. I shouldn't have eaten the cookies. Right? Shame is about who you are as a person. It's about your essential character. And shame sounds like there's something wrong with me. What's wrong with me that I ate the cookies? And so often we beat ourselves up for not being perfect. We feel shame and guilt. And I think we need to challenge the basic assumption that we should feel guilty or ashamed about what we're eating. Also, emotional eating can distract from guilt over other things. It's a form of self-abandonment. It's a form of displacement. Sometimes we feel guilty over certain things in our lives. Recently, a woman felt really guilty because she was mad at her husband. She loved her husband, So she felt guilty for being upset with him. And instead, she displaced that onto food. So instead of feeling guilty about her feelings towards her husband, or even feeling guilty, really she felt angry. She felt guilty about being angry. Instead of feeling that, she displaced it and was just mad at herself for what she was eating. So as you can see, our relationship with food can tell us a lot if we are curious about a lot about what's going on within. So the next time that you feel guilty or ashamed for something you ate or what you weigh, remember that you are worthy of respect and love, no matter what you put in your mouth or no matter what the scale says, and be really curious about what else you would be guilty for if it were not food. If you're guilty about what you ate, maybe there's something else in your life that you are feeling bad at. If you feel shame about yourself, where did you learn this? Where did you learn to feel that there was something basically and essentially wrong with you? We learn how to relate to ourselves. We are not born in a state of shame. We learn it. And that's the good news, because what we learn, we can unlearn and learn a new way. So as you can see, when we figure out why we're eating instead of focusing on what we're eating, and when we accept ourselves, our emotions, our weirdness, our wonderfulness, all of us, and when we learn to be nice to ourselves, we break free from binge eating or any other deleterious coping strategies, because by making peace with ourselves, we make peace with food too. And that means not thinking about food every minute of the day, being able to stay out of the kitchen at night, not judging ourselves. Nobody is perfect. And that's what makes life interesting, isn't it? And it means having a more relaxed and compassionate way of being in the world. A client in my online program wrote to say, "Thank you for freeing me from 40 years of dieting and living on low-fat foods and sugar-free, this and that." She told me she was in Paris and enjoying some tasty French food with no inner critic bullying her. She said, "Here's to being free and living life to the max." Now that is freedom. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for the wonderful presentation on the topic, Unlock 5 Secrets to Food Freedom. You have explained the topic in detail by giving many different examples on the topic and how it is necessary to everyone's life, that how to be freedom to take foods, fruits and vegetables, all the diets for the life. So thank you so much. Now it's the time for discussion. I kindly request all dear participants, if you have any query or would like to share something, please come ahead and discuss with keynote speaker, Dr. Neena ma'am. Please welcome Dr. Sanam Shukla sir.
Good evening, Dr. Bedkar sir, principal sir. Good evening, ma'am. Wonderful presentation. I think it is good morning for you, early morning over there, 7 o'clock. Yeah,
7 a.m., yes. That's why I have my coffee.
Yeah, thank you. Wonderful presentation you have made, and really you have connected the topic psych, emotion with the nutrition and with the physiology. I think that is the transcend what we have to understand. And yes, the people are doing, they are playing extreme roles. Some of the people, they follow too much and they are restricting themselves too much. And then you'll find some people are there, they are very liberal and they will not bother about anything. So these are the two groups of people what we found, we can get it. I'm a working physician. So definitely we are getting such a kind of groups and we restrict, yeah. But to develop some kind of fear, anxiety and tension is not